So the judge is saying, okay, I have a motion from Brian Steele to throw out some of this. There was definitely a sunroof on the car. Multiple people said that the person shooting popped up out the sunroof. So the Brian Steele motion to throw out some evidence that the state just popped up with. The state pretty much just popped up with an interview with a prosecutor and and Donovan Thomas Sr., that's Nut's dad, right? And in this interview, Donovan Thomas Sr. supposedly started describing to the prosecutor all of this information about like Nut having a beef with Birdman and them having a distrustful relationship with Cash Money, and they felt like they were trying to steal artists from it and all that type of stuff. So the judge said, all right, so since the internet is out, we can take this matter up right now. And then we hear all of this argument from Simone Hilton and Brian Steele. And this is where we learn that none of this makes sense. So pretty much what happened is, right? Pretty much what happened, and this is what Simone Hilton is trying to assert happened. What happened was Nut started to feel some type of way and feeling like Birdman was trying to take artists from TIG Records, Think It's a Game Records. Nut felt like Birdman was trying to take people, namely Rich Homie Quan, right? So I guess there was some type of falling out between Birdman and Nut because he felt like he was trying to take Rich Homie Quan. Now, so the beef, according to what the state is saying themselves, is from Birdman trying to get Rich Homie Quan from Think It's a Game. Somehow the state just fast forwards everything, does not explain this jump that they make. They fast forward everything, and somehow it got to, hey, Judge, Young Thug is trying to kill Nut because Birdman wants Rich Homie Quan on his label. I need somebody to tell me why the state of Georgia is spending millions of dollars, many months of taxpayer resources to, shout out to Jerome Street for the super chat, spending all of this money to do this major leap to say Birdman has a beef with Nut over music business. So Young Thug hired some friends to kill Nut. And they really sat, Miss Hilton, Attorney Hilton really sat in that courtroom and argued that to the judge. That's what she's like, she was serious too. And I'm just like, and then the judge is like, well, what's the connection to Young Thug? And then Simone Hilton says, well, Young Thug was affiliated with Cash Money and Rich Gang. So that's the connection. That's the beef. You telling me, Miss Hilton, Young Thug had Nut, who was looked at as an Atlanta legend, a boss in the streets, a boss in music, like in the local music scene. Young Thug would kill him, somebody that he was cool with, because Birdman wanted Rich Homie Quan on Cash Money. That's what you're trying to prove or trying to get the jury to believe? Because the jury hasn't even heard this part yet. She's trying to get this in there. And Twitter was going crazy at this time because that don't even make sense at all. That if that is the case, there's so many steps in there that she has to be missing out on, because a month ago or 2 months, whatever it was, they were saying that this whole beef started because of a fight that happened at Club Crucial. Now they're saying that the beef happened because Birdman wanted Rich Homie Quan off of Think It's a Game. Now, if that's the case, wouldn't that mean that Birdman is the one that put the hit on Nut? And wouldn't that mean that Birdman should be a co-conspirator in this case? If what Simone Hilton is saying is true, isn't that what that would mean? So the fact that Birdman is not a co-defendant here, why are they in court trying to assert that this man was murdered in Atlanta on McDaniel Street because Birdman wanted Rich Homie Quan on Cash Money? Somebody got to tell me how that makes sense. And you know what? I got a long clip here. Do y'all want to hear the clip? Let's listen to the clip, because I think it's just kind of egregious, honestly. For her to even go up in there and try to stand on this argument is kind of crazy. It really don't make sense. And this is the thing. The Fulton County prosecution right now, what they looking like is they brought this case forward based on a Reddit theory. This sounds like a Reddit theory to me. Hey, y'all, Birdman wanted Rich Homie Quan. So Thug killed Nut to get Rich Homie Quan. And y'all know what's crazy? Nut died. Rich Homie Quan never went to Cash Money. So where does it make sense that I'm going to kill Nut to get Rich Homie Quan on Cash Money? Where does that make sense at? In what world does that make sense? Nut was signed to TIG. It wasn't like homie business. He had a contract. He was signed. I mean, I meant to say Rich Homie Quan was signed to TIG, right? It was no way that Birdman was just going to be able to get him by killing people. It was definitely no way Birdman was just going to get Rich Homie Quan on Rich Gang by having Young Thug kill anybody. It don't even make sense. Nut is not even the owner of TIG. It's a dude named Fly. Rich Homie Quan has talked about Fly. If y'all listen to Math Hoffa's Expert Opinion, my Expert Opinion podcast, Rich Homie Quan was on there. He was having his own legal disputes with Think It's a Game Records himself. He was having his own issues with them. You understand what I'm saying? So there was no way Birdman was going to get Rich Homie Quan off of that label anyway. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they would have had to pay him a bunch of money or something like that to get him off of the label. Rich Homie Quan actually sued Think It's a Game. He sued them to get off of that label. So, and it's not because he wanted to go be on Cash Money. He sued them, got off the label, and went and signed with Motown. All of this is public information. So what is Simone Hilton doing in the Fulton County court telling the world that Birdman had Nut killed through YSL and Young Thug because Rich Homie Quan wanted to be, because they wanted Rich Homie Quan on Rich Gang? That sounds ridiculous to me. Now, y'all, I haven't read the comments since I've been saying what I'm saying right now, but somebody tell me how this makes sense. I'm like, I was confused about how this murder tied to Young Thug at first, but now I'm really confused. And it's not that I'm confused as to like, it's not impossible. I'm confused as to why the state is not showing proof of anything. They just saying stuff. And Simone Hilton's proof of what she's trying to say is going to come. She wanted to try to get it in with this interview that Donovan Thomas Sr.'s dad did with some prosecutor. That was going to be her proof that this was the situation. I do have a clip. I got a clip, y'all. I got a clip. I have a clip. It's a long one, so let me try to shoot through it. It's a long one. Let me see where we at with
Williams and Mr. Thomas Jr. were friends. And that has been a point made by defendant Williams through his counsel on multiple occasions and through multiple witnesses. And so what the state realized, especially after the inquiry with Ms. Edmond, that it was important for Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr., who had a different relationship with his son than what the mother had, to talk about the fact that at the time of Mr. Williams' death, they were not that friendly. What Mr. Thomas Sr. will testify to is that in the summer of 2014, all the way up probably through about September of 2014, there was a cordial, a good relationship between Mr. Williams, Jeffrey Williams, as well as Brian Birdman Williams. That over the course of the summer, there are some pictures that you have seen in which Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. had went to both Miami and LA with Mr. Mr. Brian Williams. And it was a good relationship. However, in the fall of 2014, that relationship changed. And the reason or the catalyst for that change is that Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. thought that Brian Birdman Williams was taking artists away from a record label called TIG, which is called Think It's a Game Records. Think It's a Game Records at the time was the record label that Rich Homie Quan belonged to, or the Quantas Lamar. And what Donovan Thomas Jr. began to see or observe, or what he thought, was that Birdman was trying to take Rich Homie Quan from Think It's a Game Records and bring them over to Cash Money Records. And so at that point in time.
Okay, I want y'all to pay attention to something. They keep on saying this, like Nut was worried about Rich Homie Quan being taken from Think It's a Game Records. They never say what Nut's relationship is to Think It's a Game Records. They're not saying it's his label. They're not saying that he's part owner. They're not. The man who owns Think It's a Game is a dude named Fly, a street dude that Rich Homie Quan said owned a store that sold like fly clothes and stuff like that, right? Let's just follow Simone Hilton's Reddit theory. If Birdman wanted to get Rich Homie Quan off that label, why the hell would he have Nut killed and not Fly? And I'm not wishing nothing on Fly. I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense. Let's go back into it.
Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. would have conversations with Rich Homie Quan about not going over to Cash Money, but staying with TIG Records. In the course of that, Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. would have conversation with his father about the concerns that he had of Rich Homie Quan possibly going over to Cash Money and not staying with TIG. Why that is important, Your Honor, is because at the time, we believe that Jeffrey Williams was either signed to Cash Money or had a management deal with Cash Money, but he had more of a relationship with Brian Birdman Williams and the Cash Money side of the house. And so there was some conflict with Rich Homie Quan. And so we believe that in the latter part of 2014, what Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. would testify to is that his son decided to not have as much of a relationship with both Jeffrey Williams or Brian Birdman Williams. And so he began to distance himself from the two of them. There was a specific encounter that he remembers very vividly, which was a video shoot. I believe it was Mr. Jeffrey Williams' video shoot. And when Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. and Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. went to the video shoot, they saw Mr. Jeffrey Williams there, they saw Brian Williams there, and they saw another TIG artist there. However, the owner of TIG was unaware of this video shoot and was not present. At that moment, both of the Thomases left, and at that point, that's when really the tension or the frustration developed, and he did not want to deal with anything that was not TIG.
Now, did y'all hear what she just said? She said they were doing a video shoot, a Young Thug video shoot. Donovan Thomas Jr. and Donovan Thomas Sr. showed up to the video shoot. They noticed that one of TIG's artists was there, but they also noticed that the owner of TIG wasn't there. She didn't say the owner of TIG's name. She just said the owner of TIG wasn't there. She still is not saying what Nut was to TIG and why killing him would get Rich Homie Quan over to Cash Money. It doesn't make sense, Miss Hilton. And I just seen somebody in the chat say that Hilton is now starting to do what Attorney Love was doing. That's a fact. This is beyond desperate right now. And you know, like I've been saying the whole time, I support all of our amazing Black attorneys out here. But what y'all are doing at this point is attempting to get a conviction by any means necessary. You don't care about due process because y'all keep on breaking rules that deal with discovery and evidence and all type of stuff. You don't care about a fair trial. You don't care about speedy trial. You don't care about anything. You are just looking for a conviction, and that's it. You don't even care if you never work again. By any means necessary, you're trying to get a conviction, and it's ridiculous. We cannot operate like this. I can see if y'all had some type of proof or something. I mean, literally, just recently, a month and a half ago, this same attorney that we looking at right here said that this beef started over a fight at Club Crucial. She had this same argument about some evidence a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, that came from DK in an interrogation room. She never said anything about Donovan Thomas being killed or the beef with If Gang and Donovan Thomas versus YSL. She never said anything about it starting over some rich homie Quan needing to go over the cash money. Now all of a sudden it is just leaping to Young Thug called the hit, guys. Hey, that's it. Come on. What are we talking about?
Records. And so we're talking about October 2014, November 2014, later in the year, that there was this distancing between the two, which is opposite of what we believe that the defense is trying to purport, that there was this great friendship in January 2015, because that was not the case.
Again, Simone Hilton is saying that Donovan Thomas distanced himself from Young Thug and Cash Money because of what they had observed back in a video shoot in the summer or early fall of 2014. Brian Steele is not just asserting that Nut and Thug was cool. If y'all notice, pretty much any one of these witnesses that come up that involved this killing, even Donovan Thomas's mom herself, Brian Steele is not just saying, hey, these guys were friends. Brian Steele is showing videos of them together. He's showing social media posts of them posting each other. He's showing pictures of them together right before the murder. And that's not to say people don't kill people close to them. It's to say Miss Hilton it doesn't have any proof that they fell out. Mr. Steele has a bunch of proof that they were still affiliated after the time when Miss Hilton keeps saying they fell out. You see what I'm saying? The state is failing to show where this fallout happened. She's just saying it happened. And she just thinks that the dad is going to be able to come in there and connect all the dots. The reason that, and I'm actually going to actually end this one because we've seen enough of that. We've seen enough of what Ms. Hilton is talking about right there. But just like we all expected, Judge Glanville said, absolutely not. All right, so I talked about this a while ago when people was like asking me, like, why do we think Judge Glanville is so like openly biased and helping the state out and stuff like that? Like I said before, I think he was behaving that way because he knew that the state was looking terrible and they needed some help. Now, of course, we can't prove that. We can't prove it, but I just feel like he was trying to help them out, right? But when it comes to something like this, where a witness could actually hurt the defense, now he's kicking back into, all right, let me do this the right way. He told the state, y'all need to tell me exactly what Donovan Thomas Sr. is going to say. Don't speculate on it. Tell me exactly what he's going to come in here and say. If you don't tell me exactly what he's going to come in here and say, I'm not going to let you talk about it. Essentially, they couldn't tell him what he was about to come in there and say. So Judge said, you cannot, nothing about that interview. Donovan Thomas Sr. can't come in here and tell you anything about the relationship between Donovan Thomas and Birdman or Young Thug. The judge said absolutely not. And you better be careful with questions you ask up in here, because if he even start hinting at some of the stuff that we just told you not to talk about, it might be some trouble for y'all. So don't play with it. Don't ask questions about it. Don't ask him about anything that anybody else said. So essentially what was going on is Attorney Hilton was arguing that because Donovan Thomas has passed away, Donovan Thomas Jr. has passed away, Donovan Thomas Sr. is allowed to get into hearsay because it qualifies, it meets all these different exceptions, and it qualifies for the hearsay exception, right? That's what Simone Hilton is arguing. Brian Steele said, no, it doesn't. First of all, they didn't turn this over in discovery. And they read the statute that says this is supposed 24 dash whatever, OCGA 24 dash. This is supposed to be turned over well in advance before trial starts. He's like, they just gave this to us on May 24th. So not only is that a violation, but this doesn't meet the hearsay. This is just like crazy hearsay. Is what they say is more prejudicial than probative, like all type of stuff. There was like a list of things that Brian Steele said to say this is like not right. On top of the fact that it's against the law for them to even be able to use this after not turning it over in discovery before trial started. We talked about that before, right? So Brian Steele's like, absolutely not. But I do want to play the clip where Brian Steele said that, okay. Brian Steele said that the father is not the right witness to discuss any of these issues because all the people who Simone Hilton is referencing, like Lucci, like Rich Homie Quan, like the owner of the studio. All these people are alive still. And they're available to testify, and Birdman. And they're available to testify, and they're on the witness list. Rich Homie Quan has already been subpoenaed. So he's coming. Remember we talked about this last week when people were saying, is Rich Homie Quan coming in to testify and all that? And I told y'all there's no way Rich Homie Quan can avoid testifying. Impossible. Because they're saying that he's the reason this beef even started. So it was impossible that he would be able to get out of testifying. Okay, so Brian Steele said he's been subpoenaed. He's for sure coming. So if they're going to make assertions about this beef and it's because of these people and all this type of stuff, they need to have those people come in here and testify to that. Let me play the clip where Brian Steele gets into it.
That is he. So, it's like you. Next one is for the purposes of prosecution, and also we can't cross-examine. Beef was our victim. The person next to him got killed. Just done what you tell us to do. Whatever. By Birdman Williams. Rich Homie Quan is a better. And I don't think that that's
there we go.
Something that the courts overlook. I mean, we will obviously go with whatever you say, but to me, there are real witnesses here who could testify. You know, if Donovan Thomas was concerned that Rich Homie Quan is getting courted by Birdman Williams, Rich Homie Quan is a better witness than Donovan Thomas's father. If Rich Homie Quan is concerned that Jeffrey Williams is trying to get him over to Cash Money Records, Rich Homie Quan is a better witness than the father of Donovan Thomas Jr. Those are my...
my questions being is I think he can... they're trying to get Senior, the father of Donovan, to testify about the relationship between his children and that. I have some... I believe that's been testified to, but I think he could probably give some background and fill in some the full extent of that particular relationship between his children and those folks. I guess my second thing is with Donovan Thomas and Mr. Garvin Henry, is Mr. Henry available as a witness?
Yes. I've spoken with him. The state has him on their witness list. I have good information, contact information for him. Okay. The state gave me the contact information that I have.
All right, and Mr. DeQuintus Lamar, who's I get Rich Homie Quan's sage name, is he available? Is he on?
He's already been subpoenaed. The state filed the subpoena. It came up on whatever we get. We get a copy of the.
What about Rashawn Bennett?
He's unfortunately the most available because he's in your custody, not your custody. He's in the custody of the state of Georgia prison system.
Okay.
So a production order can get him here.
All right, and Brian Birdman Williams?
He's on the state's witness list. I've spoken with him as well. He's available.
Okay, all right.
He's out of state.
Okay.
But he's available.
So y'all heard what Brian Steele just said, right? Rich Homie Quan has been subpoenaed. So it's going down very shortly. Now, the reason why the reason why the state has been reluctant to call some of these types of witnesses like YFN Lucci, like Birdman, like Rich Homie Quan, is because they know for a fact they are not going to answer questions the way the state wants them to answer.